good. I'm good. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing really great. It's good to connect with you. Thank you so much for inviting me to your...
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I lost you for a moment. Don't worry. We got you. We got you. All right, so let's get this thing started. I'm so excited. We've been trying to do this interview for a while, and I'm so happy we finally were able to find a date and time that works for us. And I know everyone's super excited. We are so glad to have you.
Well, thank you so much. It's really great to be with everybody tonight.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and just do a quick intro. Tell us a little bit about yourself. As an investor, and anything you would like to share with us. To give the audience a little bit background on yourself, because I think you have a really interesting background based on what we were able to find on your timeline and everything.
Well, thank you. And maybe we'll expel some of the rumors that I work for Humbl, because I don't. But honestly, my entire life has been one where I have been an advocate. I've always stuck up for the underdog, and I've been a ferocious and loyal friend. And I typically, I'm drawn to groups that maybe are forgotten. Like from the time I was small, I worked with the elderly, and my mom said, when I was a toddler, I'd go up to elderly people and just hold their hand. And I grew up volunteering in nursing homes, and when I was a professional, I worked in nursing homes as a recreational therapist. And I just love showing people their value. And my company that I own works with those with disabilities. I provide closed captioning. So I've always made a habit out of advocating for who and what I believe in. Even worked in political campaigns on the state, local, national level, and we won historic victories, and we did it through the grassroots movement, which is why I love the Humbl Nation. It's just, I believe in power to the people, and the people working together to make the world a better place. And I feel like Humbl really embodies that mission as well. Going like lifting up the little guy and empowering the little guy and connecting people across the world. And I just love that sense of community.
That's awesome right there. That's super awesome. And I'm glad that, who you are as a person and your values and the way you look at the world, how that in so many ways, just kind of like encapsulates what, Humbl and Humbl Nation is. So as we transition to Humbl, when you first found them or, came across them as a company and, as a stock, what are some of the things during those early days that, drew you, as an investor and as an advocate to the company? Because, you've been in Humbl for a while. You're not like, some of these other people on Twitter or social media that just jumped on Humbl like 4 days ago or 4 hours ago. You've been on Humbl and investing in Humbl for a long time. I mean, I think you invested it, in it when it was like still like under 2 pennies. So, can you give us a little history there on like, how you came across them, what you liked about them, and why you were able to, jump in so early with firm conviction on them?
Well, that's kind of a funny story, because do you know that my involvement with Humbl came off of my most colossal failure? I was in the JCPenney stock for 6 months, and I the same thing. I worked over 12 hours a day on that stock, researching, studying, networking, and fighting for that cause. And it was a complete bust. And I had a huge loss. And I thought all of my dreams of being able to buy a house for me and my kids were completely over. I'm a single mom. I've got 5 awesome kids. 2 of them are adults, and 3 boys that keep me really busy. They're 16, 14, and 13. And I just want to buy a house for me and my kids. And I thought my dreams were over. And a friend of mine said, "Hey, I hear TSNP is really great." And I'm like, what the hey? So I threw not much into it, but you're right. It was, under 2 cents. And then I started researching, and that's when I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to change the planet. And honestly, since that time in November, I've worked from, say, 7 in the morning, sometimes to 1, 2 in the morning, studying, researching, networking, and doing PR for this company because I just really believe in it. And like I said, being involved in politics and political campaigns and just advocating for what I believe in. I love the way we started out on the OTC, and it gave the little guy like us the chance to have a wonderful stock. Whereas if we had waited the traditional 5 years to uplist to launch on the NASDAQ, that would take 5 years, and who could afford it, right? At $30 a share, which is probably what it would have launched at. And so, I use social media a lot, and I use PayPal every week as a business owner. So when I saw that, oh my gosh, I can instantly transact with my international customers because I have these clients in Italy, and PayPal takes days, and they hate the fees. So I'm like, wow, PayPal charges 5% to do international transactions. Trillions are going over the border, and so far, Humbl's fees are 1/3 that of PayPal. I mean, let's do the math here, plus it's instant settlement. Or let's look at Square, for example. Square's only in 5 countries. We're already in 161. Square can only do domestic transactions. They don't do cross-border payments. I just found this out the other day. It blew my mind. We're Humbl. We're already in 6 countries, and we can, I paid this really nice musician in Canada. I liked his music videos. He's a Humbl merchant, Ethan Luce. I sent him money in his currency and rated him in 30 seconds. And I'm just like, this tech is amazing. And that's just, that's just the tip of the iceberg because then you throw in the idea of ticketing, investing, maps. I love Google Maps. I'm on Google. I use Google Maps all the time. So I love that there's going to be, and of course the social aspect, which is really fun. You get to share with your friends awesome tacos. I was like a top contributor on TripAdvisor for a really long time because I love to travel. I'm a foodie. I love going to restaurants. I love when a new business opens up. I love supporting mom and pop places. And I love taking pictures of the restaurant, showing people their menu and saying, oh, you got to check this out. So, Humbl is all of that. It's one app to rule them all. As this guy who writes a lot of great articles, his last name's Checkers, I just tweeted it this morning. He coins that phrase, and I love it. One app to rule them all. It's so true.
And I think that's this is a great segue because now, can you break down, what Humbl does for a lot of my new subscribers who are like, Miguel, what is Humbl? Like, what do they even do? A lot of times people will say, as an easy way to like oversimplify it, oh, it's basically like PayPal or like a baby PayPal. You hear that a lot. That's the kind of rhetoric you hear online on social media a lot. It's basically like a baby PayPal. That's the easiest way to explain it. But maybe if like a PayPal and a Coinbase had a baby, you kind of get Humbl. You hear all these like analogies and metaphors going around, but can you actually explain to us like what is Humbl? Like, and I think in a way you can kind of, draw out the history of it because I think you would agree like Humbl back in November is not the same Humbl we see now. So can you kind of, give us that amazing journey of what they were, what they've become, and what they are now, the different things they do, because they do so many things. And I feel like a lot of investors and a lot of people, especially retail investors that don't want to do the research, they don't really fully understand the magnitude of Humbl, and they don't understand every single vertical and every single, direction they're going. Can you do a deep dive, in regards to that for us?
Absolutely. So when I first looked into this company, I was really well aware of the global markets, really well aware that the 3 hottest sectors were fintech, which is financial technology, blockchain, and crypto. Humbl encompasses all of those because it's financial technology, it's utilizing blockchain, and it also will accept crypto. Like they have Basically, Humble has three arms to it. Humble Financial, which is where you can invest in blocks of crypto for $4.99 a month. Like for the price of a latte, these proprietary trading bots will take advantage of market volatility and trade for you. Now, when you consider that a strong IRA yields 7% a year, the yields on the Humble Financial investments are 30% plus. I mean, people are posting their gains constantly. So then you have, so that's Humble Financial. Then you have Humble Pay, which is the app, which is like Venmo, Google Maps, Yelp, ticketing, and a social platform all in one. And then the third piece would be, the Humble Marketplace, which is like Amazon, Etsy, eBay. They have a bidding engine and they're doing NFTs. But before I get to the NFT piece, which is very exciting, I want to explain to everyone what blockchain is. Okay? Simply put, blockchain is like, think Web3, the third version of the internet. Okay, so Forbes says that blockchain is the fourth industrial revolution. And in short, it's a totally new, totally secure way of storing and transferring information from financial and banking info to personal healthcare info to business info, contracts, tax, credit card payments, energy sector, real estate. It's like a new form of the internet that encrypts things and identifies things so that you're not going to have fraud because it's all recorded and open and transparent. And some are calling it more revolutionary than the cotton gin, the steam engine, the PC, and the smartphone combined. And on LinkedIn, that's 94% of Fortune 500 companies are hiring with blockchain in mind. So literally no other app in the United States is utilizing blockchain for payments. None. Zero, zilch, nada. Like, so PayPal is thinking about having a digital wallet. Well, we're already doing it. We already are a digital wallet. So, let's see. Basically, we are in 6 countries right now with the merchant piece. There's going to be 2 parts to Humble Pay. Like the merchant piece where I can pay that musician, or I went to my son's paintball party this week. This was really fun. I got there and he's totally old school. I'm like, you totally need to download the Humble app. Let me show you how it works. He's like, I'm going to check into that. I really didn't think he would do it. By the time I got home, he emailed me and he's like, I'm already approved as a merchant. So I sent him money as a tip and reviewed him 30 seconds, tweeted it out on Twitter, and then some very generous people from the Humble Nation also gave him a tip and reviews. So it's just really amazing. And he was like, this is incredible because because Venmo never really works well and, the fees are so much less. So there's the merchant piece that's already working in 6 countries, including Singapore, where we have partnerships with Cyberbeat, and that's a 1.5 billion consumer opportunity there, just with Cyberbeat alone. And then this summer, they're going to launch that piece in Europe. And then the other piece that everyone's really excited about is the P2P, or also called peer-to-peer payment system, which is like Venmo, where I can send you $5 and say, go enjoy Dunkin' Donuts. But the cool part here is that I can send it across the border instantly. So my friend in the UK, I can say, hey, Holly, go have tea and biscuits on me. And it's in her currency. So it's literally going to be in every currency, which is really cool. So that's the piece that everyone's very excited about. And that's going to come out in Q2. Now, what's Q2? April, May, and June. And we are already in June. So hopefully, according to the Humble roadmap, we should be seeing that peer-to-peer piece. launch anytime now.
Now that's really awesome there. One of the things you hit on, and I kind of want to expand on it, and it's international expansion. I have never seen a company, especially of this size, because it's not like Humble is, like $1 trillion company or $100 billion company, at least not yet. And so for a company of their size to expand into this many markets, into this many countries, into this many continents. I mean, you mentioned Singapore. They're going into Africa. They're going into South America. I mean, these guys are literally everywhere. They're expanding at like a hypersonic kind of rate here. Can you kind of like tell us what you can attribute that to, or like how they've been able to expand so aggressively and so effectively? It's not like they go into a country and only 4 people download the app. I mean, every country they're going into, it feels like they're getting tens of thousands of people signing up to the app, signing up to the platform, especially as merchants, as you mentioned, and they're having huge penetration rate, huge success. And, it just feels like PayPal and Square, as you also mentioned, they're not, as international or as at scale as this company is. And I almost find that mind boggling. The fact that they are like outpacing, PayPal and Square in terms of international expansion. But again, their penetration rate and their, the level of adoption you're seeing by customers and by merchants everywhere they go. I mean, that's extraordinary. Sometimes I'm like, how are they doing this?
You're bringing up a really good point. I mean, it is mind blowing. To be honest with you, I think it's good because, okay, so P.T. Barnum said, comfort is the enemy of progress. And I think sometimes companies get too comfortable. Brian Foote, our CEO, wanted to be disruptive. This is really disruptive because let me tell you, when I think about Humble, I think about that little merchant across the world who's busting his tail, renting out mopeds, or he's got some kind of a food tent working with tourists, but they don't have the ability to take credit cards, or maybe they're in a cash only society where you have to wait for hours in line to go pick up money. He traveled the world. He saw the problems. He saw, the predatory rates that some people have to pay just to be able to exchange money. And by the way, do you realize that Asia is already cashless? This is why it's such a big deal. The United States, we're very advantaged and privileged over here, but the rest of the world doesn't have it as good as we do. So the rest of so India, Germany, and Singapore are battling it out to be the blockchain hub of the planet. So they get the tech. And a lot of people have said, well, India wants to be in crypto. Well, India wants to have decentralized crypto, but they definitely want the tech. So, they want blockchain. I mean, they know how significant it is, and Humble's the only one doing it, at least in our country. I think Asia does have an app. I can't remember the name of it. It slipped my mind. That's similar to Humble, but as far as in the United States, no, but literally they have no competition. And it's interesting the way you say how we're penetrating. Realize that the employees of Humble, they're like working for free. They're like working for stock. You would not be working for free if you didn't know the company was doing amazing things. They're very passionate people. The executive staff, the people who work for Humble, they see the vision. They're very selfless people, and they're working day and night and weekends. They're grinding constantly. And one of my favorite people who works for Humble, his name's Ayo, and he's in charge of Africa, the Caribbean, and Latin America, and he's constantly traveling. I made friends with him on LinkedIn, and he never stops. He never takes a break, and it's just he's constantly smiling, and he just loves people, and he's just so excited about the mission and the vision of the company, and it's so empowering, even in this country, like the Humble Marketplace is kind of like Etsy. I love all the merchants. There's somebody who's selling barbecue rub, or some lady making jewelry, and it's just like anyone and everyone around the world can directly connect to anyone and everyone in countries all over the world. The middleman is gone. And that's why the fees are so much less, because it's a direct consumer to merchant layer. And it's very exciting.
Now you mentioned him, and so I have to ask you about this guy, Brian Foote, the CEO. Let me tell you, as someone that's been investing for like almost 10 years now, going on, and someone that does as much research as I do with me and my research team, I got to tell you, one of the most important things to me as an investor, as a money manager, as someone that's taking over accounts here, one of the absolute most important things to me is the CEO. I have to know that he is a killer. I have to know that he is vicious. I have to know he's relentless. I have to know that he won't stop. Like I need to invest in CEOs that are going all out, just like I'm going all out. Like I love to invest not just behind a company with great technology, but great technology and a CEO that is just absolutely out there to destroy the competition. And Brian Foote absolutely fills that spot. We have to talk about him. Can you talk about, the things you've seen him do, as long as you've been invested, and some of the things that just blow your mind about him? Like, quick example, I think, and I know you've tweeted about this a few times, and I've seen a lot of people talk about this, but the fact that this guy is saying, like, all my employees, or at least a lot of them, are sleeping under their desk at night because we're just working all day, working all night. They're just as dedicated as me. When I hear a CEO and his entire staff are like sleeping in their office, sleeping under their office desk, and they just don't want to stop working, that tells me that not only is the CEO dedicated, but like you just said, the employees are dedicated. Most of them, as you just mentioned, are not getting paid in salary or whatever. Most of them are just getting paid in stock. I mean, this management team, this staff, and this CEO specifically, Brian Foote, he is extremely aggressive. I love everything I see about him. Can you, talk about him to the audience who has no idea who he is, and some of the things that just blow your mind about him?
He is fantastic. And the ironic thing is he really is humble. He really is humble, and he's the people around him believe in him, and they follow him, and they're marching with him because they know he wants to be disruptive, and he is for the little guy. He specifically said he doesn't like the predatory rates, that so many people will charge people just to transact money, or that they have to wait in line for a really long time to pick up money. He traveled all over the world, so he sees the way money works. So he specifically said, we are not going after the 325 million people that PayPal has. We're going after the 7 billion consumers for whom money works in different ways. So this is a mission for him. He's his salary this year is $1. So he was kind of in politics in the sense that he was a congressional intern. He's been in the tech space for over 20 years. He has a certificate in blockchain and crypto from MIT, which, by the way, our new head of the SEC, Gary Gensler, also does, which is fantastic for the USA. He has won many innovation awards. Like, he worked for Epson, and he got the CEO award for innovation, and his departments that he worked on achieved #1 in global sales rankings in their respective categories. Soccer player, so he knows how to work as a team. He was a good soccer player too. Like, he also coached at Georgetown, as a matter of fact, but he played at UCLA and he played at Penn. So he's active. I love that. He's just, he goes, he grinds. He doesn't ask other people to do what he's not willing to do himself.
Yeah, no, I really like that. And, the fact, and we talked about this earlier, but, the fact that he's been, around the world, he's experienced different cultures, he's been, in different parts, whether it's Asia or Australia and Africa, and he's seen this problem, in regards to like transferring money and trying to swap out currencies and, oh, I need euros, but now over here I need, yen and, all these things that are going on. I can see, the need. I can see how the technology is working. And I agree with you about blockchain. I mean, that is right there, the future of, all of finance. And, I just really like where he's headed here. There's so much to say about Brian Foote, but overall, I really like this management team. Now, I know, recently, in terms of the stock, as we transition to the stock here, a lot of people are wondering about this NASDAQ uplisting and, oh my gosh, you're going to the NASDAQ. What can you tell us about this NASDAQ process? Because obviously, some of the companies I'm invested in are drone companies, whether it's an Ag Eagle or a Dragonfly or an Alpine 4 Technologies and, American Battery Metals. A lot of them are also going through that process of uplisting to the NASDAQ. And it feels like it takes a million freaking years. Sometimes it gets irritating, waiting and waiting and waiting. Can you talk to us about this process that they've gone through to uplist to the NASDAQ? And, what do you see what happening once institutional investors are finally able to invest, in Humbl, because a lot of them either can't because, they're in the OTC market, or they're restricted into like how much they can buy, again, because they're in the OTC market. Can you talk to us about that kind of journey that they're going through in terms of Wall Street?
Sure. First of all, I like the point that you made about the foreign exchange. I love that when we travel, we no longer have to get off the plane and go exchange money, and I don't have to come back with currency that I'm never going to use again. So I love that about Humbl, that eliminates that waste right there. And as far as the NASDAQ, by the way, I love Ag Eagle. I tend to like futuristic stocks. I see where things are going. And speaking of which, delivery, let's not forget delivery, that Brian said in several CC calls that they're looking for an acquisition in the delivery realm. So who knows, that could possibly encompass drones. We don't know. Okay, so NASDAQ. Yes, you're completely right, that the big institutions can't hop on until we are on the NASDAQ. And this is actually really not in my wheelhouse. There's not a lot I can say here because there's a lot of different rules. Because of the volatility to the stock, I think that a lot of brokerages are going to want to see a revenue. They're going to want to see quarterly financials. So it's not just about stock price. They're going to want to see several quarterly financials to show that they are growing, that they are producing revenue, and all of that. So when is that going to happen? I'd love to see it happen by the end of the year, but I honestly don't know. I have to think it's going to happen by next year. I got to think it's going to happen by the end of 2022. But honestly, I don't really know. I really can't speak to that. That's kind of, not my expertise.
No, that's fine. But, that's, man, I think when it happens and it finally is able to uplist, I think you're going to see an explosion in the stock. And by the way, I mean, guys, for you guys listening, I know it's a volatile stock. Every day it's up 30%, down 40%, up 50%. Don't ask me. What I can tell you is I buy the dips. That's all I can tell you, Americas. I buy the dips. But speaking of that, that's probably an interesting question. What do you think what can you attribute that volatility to in terms of the stock price? I mean, I know a lot of OTCs are kind of like that. Ag Eagle, as we talked about, they're another one that it's like every day. They can't just be up or down 1% like an Apple or a Microsoft. Every day has to be like a war zone, up 20, down 20, sideways 15. Is it just, pretty much just that OTC life, so to speak, where these stocks can be extremely volatile? Or, what is around this stock price that causes it to be so volatile? Because that, I think that's one of the hardest things for new investors in particular who are getting into OTCs or even things like Bitcoin. It is very hard, or Dogecoin apparently these days, it's very hard to stomach that volatility. And so sometimes they'll just give up on it. Like, I can't do it. It's too stressful. It's too much. It's too chaotic, so I guess it's almost a two-part question. What do you attribute that volatility to? And then how do you handle it so well? And I know you've been in the stock for a long time, so, it's easier to handle volatility once you've already had a lot of gains. But still, there's has to be days where you're just like, oh my gosh, again. How are you able to handle that volatility? And I guess kind of give that as some advice and guidance to new investors in Humble that aren't used to this volatility because they've been, frankly, in mutual funds for like the last 10 years.
Miguel, that is such a good question that I'm so glad you asked, because the reason why I'm able to stomach the volatility when it comes to Humble is because of something you said earlier, the CEO and the leadership team. I have to believe in the product, and I have to believe in the CEO. And if I don't, I'm out. I mean, there have been stocks that I could have made a lot of money on, but if I think the CEO sketch, I'm out because I don't want to be associated with a stock like that. So I believe in Brian Foote. I believe in the people that are working for him. And I definitely believe in fintech, blockchain, and crypto. I mean, that's the trifecta right there. And I'm able to ride the wave and honestly not even care about the day-to-day stock price because my focus is long. This is a 10-year growth stock for me. And also I've done my research. That's what I would say. You should never invest in a stock where you haven't done your research. Now, I kind of did that when I first jumped in. I just threw it in there, but I immediately started researching and I kept my money there because when I did my own DD, I'm like, I knew what I held. And so I know the way the economy is going. Kathy was with ARK Invest. She's always talking about how digital wallets are going to basically, the modern banking system as we know it is just archaic, and digital wallets are the way it's going. And we're already doing that. We're already doing what PayPal's thinking about, and incorporating all that. So knowing what I hold, very easy for me. I have never once been shaken. And so I buy the blood in the streets. You buy the fear, when it goes down. So I think one reason why it's so volatile is because a lot of people invest and they haven't done their homework. And they're listening to these people who are creating hit pieces. And because they haven't done their own research, they're very easily led astray. And I would tell you, consider who you're reading. If you're reading a Forbes piece, if you're seeing something on CNBC, Fox Business, that's solid. But if you're reading something about from someone named the Golden Panda, I mean, honestly, how seriously can you take it? So you have to consider the source. So when I do research, so I told you I do research like day and night, literally. I'm on LinkedIn. I have my Google does a keyword search for me that anytime Humble comes across it, send me an alert. So I'm reading all kinds of sources. Which, by the way, what OTC stock do you know that's been on CNBC, Forbes, and now Charles Payne's going to have them on Fox Business, But the second part to your question is, I think it's volatile because it's popular. The shorts are going after it. It is part of OTC life, but also you've got paid bashers. So, you can make money off of that if you can create volatility. I think that there's a lot of people out there that are terrified of Humble, and they should be, because they're getting ready to completely revolutionize banking as we know it. The middleman is going to be out, and people are going to be financially free, financially independent, and they're going to become their own bank. And that's a lot of power. And people who currently hold the power don't like that. So I'm all about democracy. So I love the financial democracy. And I just, I think buying the tips is a great thought. What is it? The phrase is, buy when there's blood in the streets, So I guess that's typically the advice from investors. What Warren Buffett says, the stock market is about transferring shares from the inpatient to the patient. So I think that's pretty well said there.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, Warren Buffett does. He has a lot of great quotes. I'll give him that. He has a lot of great quotes. Okay, and so we talked a little bit about Humbl's different, like, their business model, their different revenue streams. And I think I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. What is one of the most underrated or undervalued parts of Humble? Is it the blockchain? Is it the international expansion? What are some of the things that, because as you said, you're getting notifications every time Humble is ever mentioned, anytime people talk about Humble, you're doing this all day, you see the rhetoric online. What is one of the things, or maybe it's multiple things, but what are some of the things you see that they either aren't getting enough credit for, or is being undervalued or overlooked? Among retail investors, or people that, just aren't sure about investing in it, or are invested in it, but don't really know the full story. They just see all the hashtags everywhere and everyone, pumping it up, and, they invest in it, but they don't really know what they're investing in. What are some of those things? Because I feel like there's so many things here. And even when me and my secretary were going through Humble and trying to figure this out, we're like, man, there's a lot of different parts of this business. This isn't like, a one-dimensional type of company, so to speak. This company has so many different parts to it, but at the same time, it's all vertically integrated within itself, similar to like a Tesla almost, right? Vertically integrated. All these parts fit within the ecosystem. I think Alpine 4 Technologies is like that. Different parts, but they all come together. They all feed into each other. But again, just like Alpine 4 Technology and some other companies, sometimes it's hard to keep track of all the different things that are going on here, and people can lose sight of a really like secular, amazing growth story within the company that isn't getting enough credit, so to speak. What are some things that people are either overlooking or aren't focusing off, or not, just not getting enough attention, that is probably going to be one of those things that take this company to the next level?
Great question. 3 things: blockchain, crypto, and the digital aspect of it. I think people don't understand that blockchain is the new version of the internet, and that everything is going to be digitally synced. All transactions are going to be on the blockchain. And so I don't think a lot of people understand what that is. Like in 2019, blockchain was the number 1 hiring need for 2019 on LinkedIn. Crypto scares people. They don't understand it. They don't know what it is, but the rest of the world understands what it is, so it's like but even in the United States, let's see, Apple and Tesla have said that they want to allow people to start using crypto. You have the city of Miami wants to allow people to use crypto to pay their taxes. And even the governor of Texas says he wants to look into that. And not long ago, U.S. Secretary Janet Yellen said that the United States could benefit from a digital dollar. So, that's where it's going, whether or not people are comfortable with it. The good news is we don't have to depend on the United States to get on board with crypto, because this is a global market. And so, we're already in Singapore, where their entire government, they've got a whole government initiative to make the whole country on blockchain, and they think the digital dollar is going to outpace their national currency. So there's that. And then the digital piece. So Brian Foote said that he wants to be the Amazon of digital assets. This is really important because things are moving in that digital realm. So like the NFTs. I like to think of NFTs so I really love sports. I've got 3 boys. So if I'm not working, I'm on a ball field somewhere. But like the baseball cards that you would collect, NFTs are a baseball card, only it's digital. So it always stays in mint condition. And You're never going to lose it. And anytime it's transacted, it's on the blockchain, so you're not going to have fraud. But they can do cool things like they can move. Like imagine it can be a moment like Javier Baez sliding in a second base, or a batter. I'm taking even my kids' school. I'm like, I may do NFTs for all of the players on the baseball team and let them each have their own NFT where they're like swinging the bat, or I don't know if you ever seen Harry Potter, how the pictures and the frames would move. Like that's kind of what an NFT is. And then they have this acquisition that they did recently with Monster Creative and Brant and Childress, who did marketing for Transformers, Spider-Man, War of the Planet of the Apes, Star Trek, Jack Ryan, that are going to be able to create all these cool NFTs, whether it's art, music, some collectible. So, and then also blockchain. If you remember, Brian started out with blocks. And blocks, they were doing a lot of the same stuff that he says he wants to do with Humbl. Things like real estate, Can you imagine me to transact with real estate instead of that mountain of paperwork, with the click of a button? You're able to buy real estate. You're able to buy a boat. You're able to buy a car. I mean, it's all going digital, out with the paperwork, which is great. So I think those are the three aspects that people underestimate.
Oh my gosh, I can't agree with you more. Like, I'm just here listening to you, nodding my head. She's absolutely right. She's absolutely right. She's absolutely right. And I know a lot of my subscribers, shout out to all the truck drivers out there. Shout out to all my real estate agents. Shout out to all the, security guards, everyone that's going to be listening to this, nodding your heads. Cause I know you guys are nodding your heads. As someone that's owned Bitcoin, for a long time now, and, I'm not selling any of my Bitcoins, I completely agree with you when it comes to the blockchain. I completely agree with you with decentralized, financing. It is the future. And speaking of the future, that segues to one of my last questions here. Based on what you've seen so far and, even all the rumors, whether they can be verified or not, where do you see this company, because obviously you said you're going to be invested for 10 years. Lucas says the same thing. A lot of people tell me, in this Humbl community, this is like a 10-year investment, 20-year investment. And, even, shout out to Lucas out there, the Drone King. He says something funny, a lot. I think he said it twice now, but he always says, and I'm going to steal his quick story here, but he always says, I didn't get a chance to invest in Apple, 10, 15 years ago. I missed that boat. I didn't get to invest, in Amazon when it was like $100. I missed that boat. And when I look at Humbl and I look at the potential and I look at everything they're doing, I look at the management, I look at the technology, I look at the sectors that they're in, I look at what they're hoping to accomplish, I look at their ability to execute, I look at all of that. And I really believe that this could be my Apple. This could be the moment where I invest in a stock, whether it's, a dollar or, sub a dollar like it was recently. This could be my moment to get in on the ground floor of something amazing, something, spectacular, something that's going to change the world. And for me to have an opportunity like this is a once in a lifetime, once in a generation moment. There are people who invested in Apple in the 80s and 90s. There are people who bought Amazon during the dot-com crash. There are people that, invested in Tesla like I did 5-6 years ago when the stock tanked just because Elon Musk smoked some weed with Joe Rogan on his podcast. I remember coming in hard and throwing 10, 15 grand at the time, and there are these moments where you can invest in a company that's going to change the world and you can get in at a ridiculously cheap price. And, for Lucas, he believes that this is it for him. It feels like, you're in the same boat with him, and a lot of investors, around the world are. With that being said, as someone that's going to be invested for a long time, where do you see this company, 5-10 years from now? And, what are some of the things that are coming up that, are going to be huge for the company, for the industry, for the sector, and then ultimately for the stock price, that you see in the, immediate horizon and in the long term?
I love Luke. Oh, he's really great. So shout out to him. He's awesome. So I agree with him. I mean, for me, I had a similar epiphany where I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. You know, this is like, I would tell people, I'm like, this is like, to me, bigger than Amazon, because it literally is going to affect every possible transaction you can possibly do globally. I look at Humbl as a portal, you know, like in the Avengers, or when a portal opens up into another world. Like, I can instantly transact with someone in India or some remote island across the planet, in the Philippines or anywhere. It's going to literally connect consumers and merchants all over the place and remove the middleman. And whether I'm wanting to buy a handmade broom from the Philippines, or someone's spices or clothing or jewelry, it's a digital marketplace. Like, literally anything and everything, whether it is tacos that I'm buying, tipping a cab driver, you know, anything. Like, I'm going to be able to do everything from that app. Everything from that app. And I love the idea of being able to see the way the world is going, and the Humbl Nation sees that. Like, listen to this quote. To me, this is the anthem of the Humbl Nation. It's from Steve Jobs. And I think that this is why the Humbl employees rally around Brian, because they see this too. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs and the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the ones who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that do. And that's what this is about. Like, I've got goosebumps, you know. This is about an app, financial technology, that is going to change the world. It's borderless, and it's connecting all of us across the planet. 7 billion consumer target. That's huge.
Man, you're giving me goosebumps, Rebecca. You're giving me goosebumps here. Yep. That definitely worked. You gave me goosebumps here. All right. So as we wrap up this clip here, you know, what are some final things, you know, you would want all the retail investors out there that are listening tonight to understand and to keep in mind, whether the stock, you know, because obviously we don't know what the stock's doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, next week, 2 weeks from now, 4 days from now. But again, as someone that literally got in like under 2 pennies, you know, as someone who's already saying I'm going to stay around for 10 years, and, you know, after, you know, all the things we talked about here tonight, you know, what's some things that you would want everyone to know and remember, whether the stock is up, you know, again, 20% or down 20% Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, nobody knows. Whether next week the stock's at 50 cents or it's at $45, you know, what are some things you would tell them to keep in mind, to remind them that, one, this is a long-term investment, but two, and more importantly, you know, this is a company that is doing the right things. And in the end, this is most likely going to be one of the greatest investments that you can make today, and get in on the ground floor with the CEO that is going to take you there.
I want you to know two things. One, I want you to look at the experience of who is working for Humbl. They come from Twitter, Western Union, MoneyGram, American Express, Visa, Facebook, Microsoft, Epson, and Qualcomm. So and in sales, it's who you know. So this is a very experienced group of Humbl executives and employees. Second of all, I want you to remember that Amazon went through the same things in the beginning. One of my favorite videos to tweet out is the one where Jeff Bezos, when their stock went from like $106 down to $6. I mean, that's a huge drop, right? He says everything inside the company was going perfectly. We were doing all the right things, but everything with the stock price was going wrong. And he says the stock is not the company, and the company is not the stock. On the days when the market is red, if you're not buying, go on a walk. Know what you hold. Understand that, this is literally the fourth industrial revolution. And listen to the calls. When we have these investor calls, usually about once a month, get on there and listen to Brian and listen to all the things that we're doing and ask yourself, is PayPal doing this? No. PayPal is doing 15% of what Humbl's going to be doing. And just take a look at where they're at, and where we already are. And what a genius Brian Foote was to launch on the OTC, because by doing it this way, he's way ahead of the competition. Versus if he just waited in line for 5 years, by then maybe PayPal would have decided to do a digital wallet. So he's ahead of the competition. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been an awesome interview. I am excited. I am more bullish than ever. I might buy like another 10,000 shares on Tuesday. I am really excited, and more pumped up than ever. And, I'm glad we got to connect and to interview someone like yourself that, again, is actually doing the research, is spending every single day monitoring what's going on. And I love what you said. Like, if I don't feel like the CEO is as dedicated as me, if I feel like he's like some 70-year-old Bob on Wall Street that's just there to manage the balance sheet and pay out a dividend, and he's not, trying to invest capital into the technology, into growth, into innovation, then I'm leaving. There's other places I can put my money. And so I agree with you. This guy, he is all in. He is dedicated. And in a rare situation, it's not just the CEO that's 100% on board. It is everyone that works at the company. I mean, like you said, and to me, this is one of like the most bullish parts of the company for me, is when you have so many employees that are just getting paid in stock. I mean, this is literally an army of people. This is, like you said, Humble Nation. These guys are like the generals on the floor, and these guys are sleeping on the floor, and these guys won't stop. I absolutely love everything about it. Thank you so much for coming on and, letting us interview. I can't wait for everyone to listen to this clip and then blow me up with 400 messages in the morning about how amazing it was. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome, Miguel. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and it was really a pleasure, and I hope you have a great holiday.